Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 30 inside the Big Brother All-Stars house. This is Cliff Notes from outside the house. Oh, day 30. I knew it was going to happen. And I remember my season last year, day 30 was the night I got evicted. I won the battle back and I won HOH. So I was holding up high hopes for tonight to have some excitement. We got some excitement, maybe not exactly what I was hoping for, but it's okay. We've got a lot of conversations to talk about this evening. So let's get right to it. First of all, as a little bit of a refresher, eviction episode Thursday night. Kazar evicted from the house unanimously, not really a big surprise. But right after that, we then had the HOH competition. I'm sure y'all saw it, but just in case you didn't, it was a head-to-head competition where you had to answer a series of questions about contestants with filters on, and you had to answer more or less or exactly the same. The loser of each round was eliminated. The winner picked the next two people to compete. So eventually you got down to the final two, which was Davon and Christmas that way. Coming down to the final vote, the HOH for the evening is Christmas. Davon kept getting called up. She answered quite a few times. Christmas got called up twice at the very end. She didn't hit the buzzer either time. The other person got it wrong. Christmas is now the HOH. And we're starting to see, because it was a call-out type competition, we really saw alliances starting to get exposed. And Kazar called out the house during his eviction speech as well. So now a whole lot of people know what's going on, which makes it very exciting. So let's get right into the conversations. Christmas, before she got the HOH room, was having a series of meetings in the love room downstairs while waiting on her room. So we're going to go through some of those as we go through the evening. First of all, Christmas and Memphis met, but we only saw a tiny bit of that conversation before the feeds came on. But we saw Christmas and Tyler talking. Christmas is asking if Tyler is ready for some savage shit this week. She's ready to go. She says the obvious move is to put up Davon and Bailey on the block. Says that when she talked to Memphis, he kind of suggested the same thing. So she's thinking that may be a very easy way to go, if there's such a thing as easy this week. Tyler is saying that, hey, look, if you put up Bailey and Davon, hopefully someone goes home. The survivor is going to assume that you're working with Danny. And if they were to win HOH, a worst case situation, they'd probably put you and Danny up together. And if that happens Christmas, we've got your back. Danny's going home. So you should be good no matter what if you wanted to go that direction. The other option that they talk a little bit about is to just go for a backdoor of Danny instead right off the bat. But I think Cody's the one that points out, says, hey, it's not a bad thing to keep people in the house that are going after each other. So, why get rid of Danny and then have Bailey and Davon both there on the other side? Get rid of one or the other and let the survivor go after Danny, and let's keep them in the house like that. So it's interesting, probably a valid point. Tyler is saying that, obviously Davon and Danny will go for each other this week. So go that direction. They also talk about Kevin and David. It sounds like they're probably going to be safe this week, as they say it can be a wasted HOH, and these guys could be future numbers for us on down the road. So what's the point of going after either one of them? They don't really trust them, but why go after them this week? Tyler's warning Christmas to be prepared for the wrath of Bay. The wrath of Bailey is how he described it. He says she takes things very personally, so you just need to be prepared. They talk about some of the other people and where they're lining up as these alliances and sides are kind of getting exposed. They consider Enzo and Memphis to be wild cards. Well, Christmas has been working a little bit tighter with Enzo than Tyler believes. So maybe he's closer to Christmas than Tyler thinks, but we shall see. Christmas mentions that she told Bailey and Davon on the very first night, on move-in night, that if she got HOH, they were going to be good. And she's figuring they're going to bring that back up on her and say, hey, you told us back then that we were good. And Tyler saying, week one deals, that's a long time ago. That doesn't count anymore. Don't worry about that. But we'll see if that does get brought up. All right, so another conversation. This is not in the love room. This is next door in the bathroom. This is Enzo and Kevin talking to one another. And they're wondering just how the other side, what is true versus what did we suspect and all. They're wondering just how close it is Christmas to Nicole. Well, Christmas is HOH, so for this week, Nicole and Christmas are going to be best buds, I'm sure. They are pretty tight. So, but they're wondering about that. Enzo is saying that, hey, Danny was begging me to put Bailey and Davon on the block last week. So, Dan, Enzo's still shooting for Danny, as you'll find as we continue conversations. They're trying to figure out who they could get to go up against Danny to ensure that she gets voted out. You know, guys, slow the horses down a little bit. You may be getting a little ahead of yourself. You're not the one making the decisions, although Enzo does have some influence with Christmas. So they're trying to figure out who could we put up against Danny if we can convince Christmas to put Danny up and make sure she gets voted out. They're thinking that Ian would be a perfect choice. Obviously, Nicole you would expect would vote to keep Ian over Danny, so it would force her to vote Danny out the door. So that's what they're looking at. Another conversation back in the love room. This time it's Christmas and Cody that are talking. They're talking about the eviction speech that Kaiser had, that they feel it was really kind of personal. Cody feels it was very personal. He says that he kept bringing up my name and everything. He talked about a smoldering look that I gave. I just feel like it was personal. Christmas is saying, hey, Danny is taking it very personally as well. Why is she taking it so personally? And Cody says, well, it's because Kaiser told Bailey and Davon to put up Danny and Nicole. So Danny heard that, so now she's a little upset. So that's why she's doing it. Christmas is saying, talking about Ian again. Christmas is saying, hey, the other side, they think they've got Ian locked in with them, but Ian is 100% connected to Nicole. Maybe to some degree, but Cody isn't as sure, and I'm not either. I think Ian is enough of a strategist that he may flip if he needs to, but they gave him a real guilt trip, as we'll talk about, so it may be tougher right now to get him to flip over, because seems like he's kind of at least said the things that make him think that he's feeling bad, and he's in with Nicole and Danny and Tyler and all that side of the house. All right, another conversation in the photo room. Nicole has been crying a lot, just everywhere she's crying. She says that she tried to talk to Bailey and it went badly. She says Bailey said multiple people said that Nicole was after Bailey last week, which, yeah, kind of true, but she's upset about that, and she's been crying a lot. She's also complaining to Danny about Ian. She thinks that he threw the HOH competition, which he may have, so he didn't have to try to pick two people. But she thinks he threw. I got ahead of myself. She's upset because she thinks that he threw her under the bus in terms of some of his conversations this week and going after the other side. Danny is saying, hey, he threw you under the bus. I'm ready to throw him under the bus. Nicole says, no, let's wait. Don't do anything like that without asking me first. Because remember, Nicole has a final two deal with Ian, this millionaire alliance where they want to watch out for each other. So she's not ready to boot Ian yet, even though she's a little hurt. The other stuff we'll get to in a second. All right, another conversation. Bailey and Ian. Bailey is upset with Ian, saying, you slipped. You slipped up. And I think she's talking about some of the conversations he had, kind of talking about everyone's game and alliances and everything. And he feels like he's responsible for putting her game in major jeopardy. But she says she slipped up, Ian. And she says, that conversation you and I had a couple of days ago, was that just a trap? Was that just to get info out of me to throw me under the bus? Ian is apologizing and saying, no. I heard the wall yell. I heard the bullhorn, and it just got me really scared. I may have overreacted. I'm sorry. I didn't want to screw up. I'm so sorry. He's apologizing. But unfortunately, he says, I apologize, Davon. He called her Davon or Day. I don't remember, but I think Day. He called her Day instead of Bailey. Bailey is not like that. She gets up, walks away, says, give me a second. And she's upset. She talks about it later on in the evening as well. So Ian tried to apologize, but now he's got Bailey a little upset. Bailey's on edge, as you can imagine, thinking that she very well could be a target this week. So he's a little upset anyway. When Ian did that, it didn't help the situation any. All right, another conversation. This is in the bathroom. Bailey, Davon, and Kevin. They're getting Kevin up to speed on the other side's plan to put Bailey and Davon on the block, which I assume is the plan for Christmas. Kevin says, I had no idea. I didn't know any of this stuff was going on. Kevin's good at saying he doesn't know anything. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he thinks he does when he doesn't. But anyway, so he says he had no idea. In the have-not room, Nicole and Davon are talking. This was an interesting conversation. Davon is upset at the way people were being picked for this competition. Cody and Danny both picked her. And she's saying, they were looking over at you, Nicole. It looked like they were getting input from you. And Nicole saying, no, I was trying to avoid their look. I didn't have anything to do with that. And she's upset because when Christmas won, Nicole ran over as quick as she could, gave Christmas the biggest hug you could ever imagine. She really showed her cards. And Danny called her, or Christmas called her out later, said, you kind of blew it doing that. You shouldn't have done that. And Nicole said, I know, I was just so happy. But she tells Davon, she said, no, I would have done the same thing to you. It didn't have to do with Christmas or you. It had to do with the fact that a woman finally won an HOH. I was just so happy, so I came and gave her a hug. And that's it. That's the only reason I did that. Yeah, well, no, we know that's not the case. But she denies it all, says either way she would have been hugging whoever the winner was. She does wonder why Kaiser would try and blow up her game like that during his eviction speech. She says there's no benefit to him. Why would he do that? He must have been doing it for Janelle. Yeah, he's probably doing it for Janelle and the entire viewing public that was waiting for something like that. So thank you, Kaiser. We appreciate it. She's a little upset about that. All right, another conversation in the love room, this time Christmas and Nicole. They both believe, again, and this is what I was getting at earlier, they both believe that Ian threw the competition because he didn't want to pick two people. But Nicole's upset because she says, hey, I get it, but I was in danger. He should have been doing everything possible to protect me, and he didn't. Christmas thinks that Davon threw the HOH as well. Really, Christmas? Really? Davon, who has never won a competition, would have been so incredibly happy to win this one and have the power in her hands. She thought it was, but Christmas thinks that she threw it, and Nicole's a little incredulous. And she said, no, Dave feels so good with me that I really think she threw it because she trusted me. No, Christmas, I don't think that's the case at all. All right, another conversation in the comic room. This is Bailey and Davon and Cody. They're calling Cody out, saying, Cody, all this stuff going on. It sure looks like you're a lot more loyal to Christmas than you are to myself and Davon. And Cody's denying it, saying, no, I know I need to be talking to y'all more, but Davon, you're always reading your Bible when you're by yourself, and I don't want to be interrupting you and everything. And Davon starts crying and saying, I just don't feel like you really appreciate me, and he's all apologetic and everything. I don't think Bailey and Davon believe it for a second. They aren't buying what he's selling whatsoever, but it is what it is. All right, another conversation. In the comic room. This is between Enzo and Bailey. Bailey doesn't know why Danny's coming for. Well, it's because Cody and Tyler have been planting some seeds and putting the two sides against each other. Enzo wants Danny out this week, and Bailey is thinking that Christmas might put up Danny with either Tyler or Cody. No, Bailey, I don't think that's going to be. I'm not surprised me, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But it was interesting that Enzo is saying, at least to Bailey, he really wants Danny out this week. Could be. We'll see. In the comic room, Davon, Bailey, and Kevin, they're agreeing that they now have an alliance. I'm not sure if David's included because he walked away, and as soon as he did, they mentioned this alliance. Kevin wants the team name to be Team Seasoning, and each of them have a different spice name. Bailey said, nah, we ain't doing that. No, but it does sound like another alliance of some sort, unnamed, has been formed between those three. Maybe a little too late, but we'll see. Another conversation in the love room between Nicole and Ian. They previously talked and agreed that Kaiser was to blame for paranoia, and they won't hurt each other. We've smoothed it over. Nicole's saying that Davon also knows about everything, and she's not upset at Ian, but not as sure about Bailey. So, yeah, Bailey's still a little upset, so you're going to have to mend some fences there. Another conversation, HOH room, Christmas and Enzo. Christmas is saying that her excuse, if she puts Bailey and Davon up, they're a known alliance. We know they're so tight with each other. Also, they talk and they think that Ian threw the HOH, just like it was discussed earlier. All right, final conversation. Everyone's in bed except for Davon. She takes a shower. She goes in the love room. She's talking straight to the cameras, giving us our strategy for the week coming up, or at least the next few days. Her strategy, she says, Ian, Cody, and Nicole all can play for HOH. So just in case I'm still here and one of them wins HOH, I need to smooth everything over with them. But she wants to let Ian know that they're good, be nice to him. She wants to make Cody and Nicole feel bad for coming after her. She's bragging that all her tears earlier for Cody were just acting. She wants to make Cody also make him feel super important, stroke his ego a little bit. She figures they'll tell Danny and make her feel bad also. The idea is she wants all of them to think, well, she wasn't coming after us. She wouldn't be feeling as bad as she was. We must have misinterpreted things. Let's leave her alone because she's not coming after us. You go for it, Davon. I don't think they're going to buy it, but hey, you take your shots. You do what you can do. An exciting night, hard to squeeze in 15 minutes, but I'm so happy to see what happens with the nominations tomorrow. I will see y'all in 24 hours, which will be Saturday morning. Y'all have a great evening. SKD 143. Bye. I did it in 15 minutes. Isn't that amazing? Woo!